Candyman. Candyman. Candyman, Candyman, Candyman. Directed by Nia DaCosta, who's actually directing her first horror feature here with Candyman. And she'll also be directing The Marvels, releasing late next year. And this film stars Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, Tiana Paris, Coleman Domingo, and Tony Todd. So Candyman is a sequel, but also sort of a reboot to the 1992 horror film Candyman that returns now to a gentrified Chicago neighborhood a decade after the events of the original, where the legend began. So I definitely want to start this off by saying that I was certainly a part of the generation when Candyman was first released where it just scared the shit out of us. Around that time, you could not pay me, the younger me, to stand in a mirror alone in a bathroom and say Candyman 5 times. You just couldn't do it. I'm like, hell nah. It scared me shitless, man, around that time in the 90s. And it was a huge urban legend around my neighborhoods growing up. It was a very big deal, especially in Black communities. It was always heard in schools, played around amongst your friends, family would joke about it. I mean, it became a very big cultural horror theme for us. But as far as Black horror goes, Candyman was always the top of the list because he was really the only Black horror representation we had for a while when it came to just iconic killers in cinema. But let's get to the sequel already. You know, was it any good? Well, first I'll start off by pointing out the fact that the original wasn't really a masterpiece of a film to begin with. I mean, if we're being honest. But for the time that it was released when it first dropped, I mean, it was some pretty creepy shit to see in the 90s. Now, with this new sequel, because just to be clear, it's definitely a sequel. I wasn't too sure about that because I read an article from the director Nia DaCosta where she was saying that she really wouldn't classify it as a sequel or reboot really, or a remake. She used the term reimagined, but after seeing the movie, man, it's a sequel. Just to keep it simple, the film is a sequel. It takes place a decade after the events of the original, and it pretty much takes that story and creates a continuation of it. So yeah, it's a sequel. You know, I can honestly say that I felt like they did a lot of things right with this sequel, especially with the story specifically. I mean, it ties in very well with this film, and they really took advantage of the small details in the original and greatly expanded on them. I mean, a lot of very minute details they expanded on, and I thought that was really amazing the way that they went about it. You know, they actually took the story in a direction that I wasn't really expecting them to go in, you know, but at the same time, it made so much sense that they took this route with the film. And they added a lot of cool upgrades to the killings of Candyman and the overall, you know, creativity of the horror. Even also the ways they chose to use the mirrors in the movie. It was really cool in my opinion. But even with all of that said, and you know, they also brought forth a fairly solid story here, they didn't truly take advantage when it came to capitalizing on the eeriness and the gore and just the sheer creepiness that the original was able to bring to the table. I mean, just so many missed opportunities, man, when it came to the horror moments. The thing that really made the original such a great horror movie in my opinion was the ominous music. That fucking creepy music, man, and the grim tone that they were able to engulf the film in. I mean, from the very beginning of the movie, you just feel like you're not in a safe place. Like, the movie just feels so creepy, man, and this movie wasn't able to do that, although it tried. You know, they said they were going for a different type of tone, or not necessarily a different tone, but just a different take on the story, but I wish they would have found some way to keep the tone. They were trying to create their own thing, trying to fix something that wasn't broken, in my opinion. I mean, with the 1992 version, you just never knew when he was going to show up in the movie, and they really didn't have to rely as much on mirrors in the original for Candyman to appear. They basically gave him more limits in this movie, when he originally felt much more boundless of a character and more of a threat, and I was really looking forward to them expanding on that in this story. But instead, they really didn't expand on Candyman that much as a character, in my opinion, at all. But instead, Candyman was a smaller part of a larger issue in their version, which I understood. You know, I understood what they were doing and the message that they were trying to get across. But this is much more of a horror movie about injustice and police brutality than it is about fearing Candyman. So I'm giving Candyman. I know you guys are gonna find that to be annoying. I'm sorry. I'm giving Candyman a 7 out of 10. The creativity and thoughtfulness that they put into creating a continuation of Candyman was pretty damn awesome. But instead of focusing on making a really cool, iconic, cinematic, ghostly slasher better, it seems like they put the infamous character of Candyman in the back seat so they can make much more of a political statement. And like I said, once again, hey, I understand. There's an issue in the world when it comes to racial injustice and police brutality against colored people. Yeah, I get it. And Candyman in general is a story that's, you know, rooted around racism. But there's a lot of great cinematic horror there as well when it comes to this character, and that's what the original was able to execute on a lot better. And I felt like this character didn't need to be, you know, put in the back seat for them to be able to tell this story of police brutality and racism in the world. This character needed to be a horror figure. I really wanted to see him become and can just continue to be something like a Jason, like a Freddy Krueger, like a Jeepers Creepers, you know, like a Michael Myers. Like Candyman needs to be up there with these characters. He shouldn't have to rely on putting out this statement. That statement should be a part of this film, sure, but I don't think it should be to the point where Candyman is no longer able to shine or outshine those political statements that are added to the film. You know, he should definitely continue to be this horror iconic character that's larger than life and scaring kids everywhere. But you know, in this film, they're like, hey, there's things much scarier in the world than Candyman. You know, and that's very true. He's a fictional character, but like, let this movie live to be what it is. You know what I'm saying? But that's just my take on it. But anyway, Candyman releases this Friday, August 27th, only in theaters. So there you have it. And if you enjoyed the content, you know what to do. Thank you for watching.